Rush Limbaugh weighed in on the brutal murder of 5 police officers in Dallas. Let's see what he had to say.
Speaking of President Obama, in part of show prep today, I found a story from March, I think, of 2015, in which President Obama welcomed 2 founders of Black Lives Matter to the White House and commemorated them and their efforts and praised them as being better organizers than he is. And that's it, that Black Lives Matter was just exactly who they are then as who they are today. They're a terrorist group. They're quickly becoming a terrorist group committing hate crimes.
Black Lives Matter is a terrorist group. Only problem with that, according to the Dallas police here, quote, the suspect is not affiliated with any groups. That's not me saying it. That is the Dallas Police Department, who in this case, the officers killed, they're in that police department. According to them, they say he's, quote, not affiliated with any groups. So what does Rush Limbaugh say? Facts, schmacks. I don't care. I'm going to say he is affiliated with Black Lives Matter, and I am also just going to smear all of Black Lives Matter and say, well, they're a terrorist group. Okay, so they go on here. They say, quote, he was upset about Black Lives Matter. That's weird. He was upset about the recent police shootings. He was upset at white people. He wanted to kill white people, especially white officers. Okay, now obviously this person is a crazy person. This person is a bigot. He blamed all cops and all white people for bad cops who took actions that were not necessary, in the sense of, in Philando Castile's example, killing him when he didn't do anything. So this guy was mad about that. He's a crazy person. He's a bigot, and he wants to respond against all white people and all cops. Insane. He says he was upset about Black Lives Matter, though. Now, why was he upset with Black Lives Matter? Well, because in his mind, he thought, well, I mean, come on, this group is weak. They aren't remotely militant enough. So they're not on the side of murdering cops, and I think they should be on the side of murdering cops. So, and by the way, he acts like Black Lives Matter hasn't said anything since this incident either. That's not true. Now, again, this guy, he wasn't part of Black Lives Matter. He didn't know any of the protesters, okay? But Black Lives Matter still came out anyway and said, we denounce this. This is fucking crazy. No, we don't want to murder police officers. But all the facts, all the evidence in the world, irrelevant to Rush Limbaugh, because he found a situation that he can twist and pervert and blame on all of Black Lives Matter. And this gets into the broader conversation of, well, what is Black Lives Matter really about? Well, I don't want you to take it from me. I don't want you to take any of this shit from me. I'm just telling you what's been reported and why Rush Limbaugh is wrong based on what has been reported, based on the data. So let's go directly to Black Lives Matter to figure out what they're about. Well, according to them, in Campaign Zero, their whole purpose is 10 specific policy reforms, policy changes that would make them achieve their goals. So what are they? Well, the first one is they want to end broken windows policing, which means, in other words, you don't want cops to go crazy over low-level offenses, because when you do that, you clog up the justice system, you don't care about rehabilitation, and you're too punitive. So that's when cops feel like an occupying force, when they do broken windows policing. It's a very right-wing approach to policing. That's goal number 1, end broken windows policing. Number 2, have community oversight of cops. Seems pretty reasonable. Number 3, have new use of force guidelines. Right now, the guidelines are too open, they're not clear enough, and it's not like violence is an absolute last resort for the cops to use. They want to change those guidelines to make them more reasonable, to make them so cops don't go to force so quickly. Number 4, they want to independently investigate and prosecute in these cases of police abuse. Right now, you have prosecutors who know the cops that they're supposed to be prosecuting. So you have a massive, massive conflict of interest because they work with these people. And we expect, like, oh, no, everything will go smoothly if this one has to go after that one when they fucking were at each other's their cousin's wedding together or whatever. That's insanity. So the idea is we need federal prosecutors to go in whenever there's an instance of police abuse, like we've seen time and time again, and they're the ones who do the work, because then they're more objective, they don't know the person, and you're more likely to get justice. The fifth thing, they want community representation among the cops. So have some people from within the community join the police force because they know Miss Johnson, and if they know Miss Johnson, they're less likely to view Miss Johnson's son as a monster, and they're more likely to view him as a human being who perhaps needs help or rehabilitation or something like that. The sixth thing, body cameras. They want body cameras on all officers. Why? Studies show that while it's not foolproof, just the fact that officers have body cameras and they know that they're on and they know they're being recorded, they're much less likely to do something crazy and aggressive and go too far. That's what the studies have shown. The seventh thing is de-escalation training. They want to train the officers to make it so that they, can de-escalate from situations that are tense. That is exactly what's needed in, for example, the Philando Castile incident and the Alton Sterling incident, and in many others. The eighth thing, end for-profit policing. That seems like a no-brainer. The ninth thing, demilitarize the cops. Not so that they don't have guns, by the way. Let's be clear. Demilitarize in the sense that they don't literally have former military weaponry that was given to them through a federal government program. Again, that seems like a no-brainer. And then the 10th thing is fair police contracts. The way the union contracts with cops are worked out right now, they can basically get away with anything. So they want to make it so that if they do something wrong, there needs to be consequences. So let's redo the contracts to reflect that, as opposed to the cops defending even the worst cops who clearly committed crimes. Okay, so that's what they want to do. That's what their goal was. That's what the movement is about. And by the way, it's not really a centralized group. It's just a movement. There are many people who are, say they're affiliated with the group who aren't actually part of the group Black Lives Matter. They're just affiliated with the movement because they say they're in Black Lives Matter. And are there examples of those kinds of people doing things that are terrible and that the actual group itself, Black Lives Matter, would disagree with? Like, for example, D. Ray McKesson, who's a leader, Shaun King, for example. Yeah, don't take my word for it, take their word for it. They were tweeting about it endlessly when they were, when this guy was killing the cops. They were denouncing like there's no tomorrow. Of course they don't agree with killing cops. Of course they don't agree with, for example, there's that old video of people who were affiliated with the movement, Black Lives Matter, where they said, pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon. Obviously overt violent rhetoric against cops. Yeah, that's dead wrong. I don't agree with that. The actual leaders of Black Lives Matter do not agree with that. There's nothing about that written in the policy positions that Black Lives Matter is about. They're not in favor of that kind of stuff. They are extreme elements affiliated with the movement, not the group. But what does Rush Limbaugh try to do? Of course, he tries to take fringe elements and say that this represents the heart of Black Lives Matter. This is what the movement is actually about. It's about hating cops, hating white people, not about policy reform. It's about terrorism and murder. He thinks it's about flat out murder and terrorism. He says that's what it is. It's a terrorist group. Interesting, because again, when I go to their main document, Campaign Zero, I don't see anything about being pro-violence and pro-terrorism. In fact, I see explicitly the opposite. I see all the different policy substance reforms that they want to do. But I know, don't look at that. Don't look at that at all, because if you do, it ruins your narrative of all of Black Lives Matter being bad, as opposed to having some fringe elements that are radical and bad. It ruins your narrative of them all being bad, so just take the fringe examples of bad people, and people who aren't affiliated with the movement at all, like this murderer, Mika Xavier Johnson, and just say, I don't care. He's black, Black Lives Matter, a lot of people in the group are black, there's a connection, he agreed with them even though he literally said he was upset with them, likely because they're not militant enough, but I don't care, facts, data, specifics, throw it out the window, I get to call them what I want to call them, and it fits my political ideology, and obviously I'm Rush Limbaugh, I work backwards from my conclusion, so that's great, I get to smear away. No, you don't, because I'm here to fact check your ass.